The Cold War pushed men into some of the deadliest climates on Earth, and one of the harshest was the Arctic frontier. We're talking temperatures so low that metal cracked, lighters froze solid, and the chemical compounds inside, matchheads, failed to ignite. Yet teams stationed in forward listening posts, radar stations, and remote reconnaissance camps still had to cook, signal, thaw equipment, and stave off hypothermia. The first 60 seconds of this story matter because the survival method they used didn't rely on sparks, flame, or fuel as we think of it. It relied on one principle the military understood better than almost anyone at the time: controlled chemical reaction. This trick wasn't flashy, and it wasn't written on survival manuals handed to new recruits. It survived because the men who used it had no choice. When death from cold wasn't an idea but a countdown, this method was the difference between living long enough for extraction and freezing before morning. Now let's get into the real substance of it, because the method those Cold War teams used is something modern survivalists, off-grid farmers, and cold-weather explorers can still replicate today. It's reliable, it's long-lasting, and it works even when traditional fire sources fail completely. Modern gear can malfunction, but chemistry does not care about the temperature outside. And that's exactly why this method became so trusted. The method depended on stored chemical heat rather than traditional flame. During the Cold War, American, Soviet and Canadian units stationed in the far north relied heavily on exothermic chemical packs carried as emergency heat sources. While today we're used to disposable hand warmers, the originals were far more intense and designed to produce prolonged high-temperature output. They used iron powder, activated carbon and salt mixed with water through a separation barrier. Once the seal was broken, the reaction generated sustained high heat. Troops realized that with proper insulation and a tight enclosure of tinder around the pack, they could coax that chemical heat into creating a flame, even at temperatures where matches shattered or butane lighters failed to vaporize fuel. The concept was simple. If you can't start a fire the normal way, start with heat itself. Let the environment do the rest. The chemical heat pack didn't rely on oxygen for ignition. It didn't need a spark, and it didn't depend on fuel vapor expanding. Even in temperatures of -40 degrees Celsius, it produced enough warmth to dry damp tinder and raise it to ignition temperature. Once that happened, the soldier could add progressively larger material until the fire transitioned from chemically assisted heating to conventional flame. Cold War field teams perfected a repeatable technique for lighting fires with chemical heat. Reports from radar outpost veterans describe a method that worked even during storms. They would place the heat pack inside a small windproof cup or metal ration tin. Around it, they packed the driest tinder available, usually shaved wood, parachute cord fibers, cardboard strips, or even pages torn from code books once they were authorized for burning. As the chemical pack activated, the air inside the tin warmed and the tinder dried. After several minutes, the tinder reached the point of auto-ignition. No striking, no spark, just a gradual rise until flame appeared. Men stationed along the distant early warning line reported that this technique could produce fire even during whiteout conditions, when matches simply blew out instantly. Modern survivalists can apply this method using modern materials. Today's equivalent is, well, surprisingly accessible. The closest modern counterpart is the iron powder-based hand warmer, but with one key difference. Those require oxygen. The Cold War packs did not. To replicate the effect, a survivalist should carry a small exothermic heat packet designed for medical warming or meal heating rations, the same kind used in flameless MRE heaters. These are magnesium-ion chemical heaters activated by water, and honestly, they work in any temperature. To use it as Cold War teams did, start by placing the heater at the bottom of a small metal container. Add a tablespoon of water to activate the reaction. As the heater begins to release heat, pack your tinder around it. Keep the setup insulated on the outside using snow blocks, a jacket, or a sleeping pad. The insulation traps the heat, raising the internal temperature instead of letting the cold environment siphon it away. Within several minutes, the tinder will dry. After sustained heating, it will begin to smoulder. Gentle airflow at this moment nurtures the embers into flame. The process takes patience, but honestly, it's almost impossible to fail unless you choose the wrong tinder. This method also works for emergencies, when carrying matches just isn't possible. One practical example is long-distance winter trekking. Imagine a person may fall in water and lose every single piece of dry gear. In those conditions, traditional fire starting becomes nearly impossible. But a sealed chemical heater still works because water activates it rather than ruins it. Hunters and trappers in the northern United States still keep MRE heaters for that reason. Arctic researchers keep them inside survival kits attached to snowmobiles. For preppers, storing a few flameless ration heaters in a vehicle's winter kit turns a potentially fatal breakdown into a solvable problem. Even farmers working remote winter fields can rely on this method to thaw equipment, warm hands, and ignite emergency fires for signaling. This Cold War trick endures because it solves a universal problem. Fire is survival, but flame needs conditions that extreme cold destroys. Heat, however, does not. The men stationed in the Arctic learned that a chemical reaction could hold the line long enough for nature to cooperate. Their method didn't survive because it was clever. It survived because it worked every single time. If you found this kind of historical, practical insight valuable, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video. The more people who learn these forgotten methods, the more prepared we all become.